Morning, everybody. Happy March 6th. So if everybody can start us out, because we do have actually quite a few new people. I look forward to programs introducing them. In the chat box, please put your name, your title, what building you work out of, and something that you're looking forward to with spring. Something you're looking forward to with the fact that spring is just around the corner. So name, title, where you work out of. And if you really don't care about spring, something that people don't know about you. Like we know Jason from Hudson House loves tacos. So is there something about you that nobody knows? Could be that you love to travel or you love staycations. Ah, got some Mets baseball, got some hikes in the mountains. Gardening. Yes, the other day someone thought they could start gardening already. So again, name, title, building you work out of, and something you are looking forward to with spring, since it's just around the corner, or it could be that you want to share something that nobody knows about you, that you prefer cupcakes over pie. I don't know, just making this stuff up. Give people a couple more minutes, and hopefully everyone's going to join us tomorrow for staff appreciation. As a reminder, we'll have it in the Middletown office, Hudson House, and then the call center. So Danny's looking forward to warmer weather and traveling. Saguana just can't wait to stop wearing a coat. Ariana's looking forward to her birthday. Elizabeth is warm weather and spending time outside. Gardening some blooms. Kids can run around. Get to celebrate my birthday for 30 days and 40 nights, starting March 4th until April 19th. Okay, your birthday is 4/4. Carrie, more time outside. Coffee on the porch. Yes, that I enjoy Sunday morning. Is coffee on the porch until my dogs bark too much to neighbors that we have to come inside. Jennifer, warm weather, daylight hours. Barbara, I'm looking forward to warmer weather and spring flowers. Yes, those of you that know me, I can't keep plants alive, so I gave up on the gardening. Okay, again, keep it going. Putting in the chat box your name, title, where you work out of. Either something you're looking forward to spring or something we don't know about you. Nalini is looking forward to the plants being able to live outside instead of inside. Molly is drink iced coffee. Yes. So Cameron, 5 years with her, celebrating 5 years with her partner. Caitlin, getting dark out later. Shelly, being able to take my dog for a walk and not in the dark and not having to put so many layers on. I think I'm a lazy dog owner. I just let mine outside in the backyard. I should start walking. That would be a good thing for the spring. Yes, definitely iced coffee. I've been seeing quite a few people having iced coffees already. think I see Megan Bear one every day. It looks very delicious, her coffee. Days for later. A lot of people celebrating. So again, if you're just coming in, please put your name, title, what building you work out of, something that you want to share with everybody about you, or even just the idea of spring and what does it mean for you? What are you looking forward to doing? They want me to purchase some software. Megan, Luca's first birthday, yes, next week. Marissa looking forward to warmer kayaking, walks in the warmer weather for Bianca. Ashley starting a new hobby, traveling and starting a new hobby. Okay, excellent. Okay, Christian playing basketball outside. Allison some more gardening. John Morty concerts in the warm weather. Michelle outdoor activities. So Patrick some gardening. Amisha looking forward to the blooming of plants, flowers, and trees, which is so beautiful. Joanna's looking forward to vacation and warmer weather. Serena not freezing while walking to my car. Yeah, that's a good one. Thomas, I look forward to playing tennis in the approaching seasons. Awesome. So keep it going. We're going to get started just because we do have a significant annual training today that Allison is going to provide us, and we want to make sure we give ample time. We learned the last staff meeting that based on what the time said for the Zoom, people thought that we ended at a certain time. So we did make sure that it was at least 9:30 to 11:30. If it is ever going to go past 11:30, we will notify you ahead of time so that you can plan your schedules accordingly. So we understand we put consumers first, but these are trainings that we really need to take care of. Oh, I definitely need to highlight that Ricardo is moving overseas. We're going to truly miss having your bright smile in the building, Ricardo. Maybe you have a big enough place that we can maybe do our team building. And I believe you're moving to Peru. So maybe we can go there with you. So yes, as Jason said, congrats and sorry to see you to go. So okay, who would like to start us out with announcements? So unfortunately, we do have people leaving or people just left. But with all the things going on, I'm not sure if you're aware, Catholic Charities is going to stop providing clinical services. So we're hopeful that we'll get a lot of more resumes, people looking for jobs. The market right now is not the same market where you could, people could just go anywhere. So at this point, we're looking forward to some of the, even some staff that have left for other positions are looking at coming back as well, just due to the job market, that kind of stuff as well. So please, if anybody wants to start us off with any announcements with your programs.
I could go first. I wanted to welcome Michelle and Michael, their new Health Home Plus Care managers with us. And it's their first meeting. Also, Andrea is now officially transitioning to her role as AOT supervisor as we received our first referral yesterday. And you already mentioned it, but I was going to let everyone know that Ricardo is sadly leaving us. That's it.
Thank you. Who would like to go next?
I can go next. For our home to stay location, we have a new case manager, Jackie Morales. She's been a wonderful addition to the team. We do have in the works hiring someone else for the other case manager position, which we are very excited to be fully staffed. And I think that's all the updates I have. Thanks.
Excellent. Who would like to go next? This is an opportunity as well. If you have openings in your program, I'm not sure if Jessica Walsh is on. I see Barbara, but I know you have a couple openings.
We have a lot of openings. So if you know anyone, please refer them. We have the core service provider open. We have the core licensed clinician. We have the WOJI. We really are hoping to get that position filled for WOJI. So if you know anyone, please look, please, 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 we would love that. We love people being recommended. So if you know anyone, send them our way. Thank you, guys.
And then you have the family support one open too still, correct?
Ma'am, and your hair looks fabulous today, Angela.
Thank you. I washed it. I'm just kidding.
I see curls.
I see girls, yes. A couple of us are going to a luncheon after the meeting, so I thought it looked presentable, but thank you. So with the openings, remember the agency does have a referral bonus once the person completes their satisfactory, introductory period of 90 days. We look forward to that. Please, 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 I say this, I'm obviously biased. I've been with the agency over 21 years, but one of the favorite positions I ever had was with System of Care, which was a $9 million grant that the county got, and it worked with so many different agencies. So I got to know so many different resources. So those of you that know me, I started as a volunteer back in 2003 before I could work with the INS. And I got to know all these resources. But when you actually get to work in the field, boots on the ground, working with every agency, connecting and collaborating weekly with the people in these capacities is pretty phenomenal. And so this one is like that. It's called Welcome Orange Geriatric Initiative. For those of you that are new, it's working with, I think this is pretty young, but the geriatric population for Orange County is considered 55 and older. And like I said, I consider that very young. And the person that would be getting this position with the agency is called a gatekeeper. So you do all of the introductions to the program, the orientation part of it, doing the intake and the documentation and the data entering and that kind of stuff, and then working with the clinicians, working with independent living, Catholic Charities, Jewish Family Services. You're also working with the Office of the Aging. There's so many programs and agencies you get to work with. So when you think about collaborating with 55 and older and ensuring that they can stay, in their housing, they can get services. And the goal is typically the clinical piece of it is if someone cannot get out of their home, whether it is some type of trauma, if it's some type of mobility, the goal is by working with them is to eventually get them out of their home. So there's through independent living, there's home modifications, there's a lot of different things that have been created through this project. And MHA has been with it since day one. This is actually round 2. So I can't remember if we're in year 7 from the original, which was 5 years. Not every entity that reapplied got selected, and Orange County got selected to have a round 2. So it was Welcome Orange Geriatric. Now you'll see E instead of the WOJ because we had to call it something different, enhanced WOJ. But again, I know I'm highlighting that. And then family support, near and dear to all of us. We always say no decision about me without me. And we think about ensuring the families have a voice when it's their adult child with mental health or their actual child under the age of 18 with mental health. And so this person that we want to hire will be able to work with and navigate with families. The just notion of anybody here that has lived experience or have a family member that's had to navigate by themselves, this is what this person's supposed to be doing. So please, 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 if you know anybody that has that lived experience for the family support, that understands how difficult it is to navigate the system and get eligibility and get services and all that kind of stuff, please refer them. Okay, so that's my soapbox for those 2 programs. Anyone else?
I don't have any staff leaving, thank goodness. But I did just want to bring to light that our annual meeting is coming up. So please, if you have any pictures out there or stories, make sure you share them with your managers and supervisors because we're putting together our annual journal, which really just brings together all the hard work that all of you do. So please, 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 make sure that you're thinking about all the work you've done through 2024 so we can highlight it in the journal. I believe Angela sent those out last week. Also, I just wanted to announce as it came through as we are all sharing what we're looking forward to. We have a vet to vet, the very first annual hockey tournament, the Patriot tournament at Ice Time, and we got our first sponsor this morning for $500.
Yay.
So very exciting. It's a free day. Come out. You know, we're taking cash donations at the door, but everyone here is invited to come out and support and participate, and it should be really fun. So I just wanted to share that with everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, it's difficult with fundraising because we don't actually have a cost center for that, but we always take donations. We, as you know, probably, and correct me, Trish, Nicole, those of you with, and Caitlin with the holiday baskets, in the past, all of the donations from food pantries, from the Elks, from other entities covered all of the costs for our food baskets. And for at least the last 3 years, that is not the case. MHA actually significantly puts at least $5,000 into the baskets due to the demand. And at one point, we thought we were going to have to ask people, do you want the November basket or do you want a December basket? And with just the hard times that we knew the people we serve were going through last year, we really pushed to be able to give people, if they needed it, it's just not a guaranteed. Obviously, if you're going to be away and if you don't have a family coming and you're not going to be using it, we don't give the basket, but to make sure that people got one in November as well as December. So where these were from food pantries donating all the foods, all the goods, that is not the case anymore. So remember, for everybody that does the transportation day, that was expanded a couple years ago, be transportation and adoptive family. And then last year, everybody was notified that it was expanded to be transportation, adoptive family, and the holiday baskets, just because of the need for these types of services. Now, when we get donations, so near the end of the year last year, we got some from some banks, and they did make it a restricted. So restricted donation is when it has to go to something very specific. So opt-in, it will be for the food or for the adoptive family. And then there's unrestricted. Well, this ice time, any donations that we get after our expenses, because we have to pay for the refs and different things like that, those will go directly restricted to the Vet to Vet program to look at where they can expand some of the needs that they have there as well. So again, anytime that these donations come in, if they're unrestricted, it gives us an opportunity to do things where, I don't know if you remember people, I think it was last year or the year before, a kid had his bike stolen, brand new bike, had it stolen in the front yard, and everybody rallied to, that wasn't from our funds, but we all, a good portion of us put in money to get him a new bike, and we raised enough money from staff to actually get him a good helmet as well. So, you know, it's that great work that comes together, and it reminds us why we work for such an amazing agency, but that we work with such amazing people. So if you can come out, that's great. Someone just put in, when is the annual meeting? We're going to announce it. It's on May 1st. Is going to be at this point. We're hopeful that it's still going to be at Otter Kill Golf Course. That's where we had our holiday party in December. We like that location because of the fact that it's pretty central for the people coming from New Windsor, Newburgh, and Port Jervis, Middletown, etc. At this point, you might have heard that Otter Kill went from Chapter 11 to Chapter 7. The difference is Chapter 11, they can put their resources and funding plan together. Chapter 7 is the court puts them into that, and that's when they have to start to liquidate their assets. But at this point, we're assured they have a funder that is going to take over. They just didn't get it finalized before the court made their decision. But we will move forward at this point with it being Otter Kill. We are testing the waters right now with other places we could potentially go to, but this particular person that we've worked with on many events really understands nonprofit. Corey understands we don't have a lot of money and doesn't charge us $85 a person. So at this point, we still want to be there, but the flyers and everything will come out. We may need to pivot very quickly if something changes. But as I mentioned, we are looking at other venues just to, you know, be safe and make sure that we make the best financial decision for the agency. It will be in person. We have moved it from 4 to 6 to 3 to 5, only because we want our program participants to come. So this is a great opportunity for Hudson House to bring the members. Home to Stay brings their members. social club, Compeer, and at Hudson House, I'm a woman every time I go there each week. When is the meeting? I want to go, so Bianca's aware, and the members actually really look forward to being there. It's not only an opportunity to celebrate the collaborations with people in our community, so there's volunteer awards, there's business awards, but we also get to look at milestones for staff. So we always honor 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So this year we actually have a good number of 5-year people, as well as, I think I mentioned before, Teresa Brandon just finished her 25th year. So very excited to have that one end of the spectrum being the starting of 5 years, and then we have our highest being 25. So very excited about that. Okay. But more will come out, as I mentioned, and Allison said last week, the form went out, the different forms to fill out for your successes. So typically we would have you give us our units of service and how many people you served, but you guys were tasked with, for our CFR, all of your units of service. And I was very excited to see a lot of the numbers, but I also learned that some programs just they weren't collecting. They just didn't do the work that should have been collected monthly. So please, 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 it is so important. We see the work being done. We know that you're talking to people, you're making calls, you're doing whatever. If you're not tracking it, and as we always say, then it didn't happen. And we use these numbers for applying for funding. We use these numbers to justify we want to maintain funding. And when we don't have units of service, when we don't have the numbers to show, but the money is being spent, as an agency, we have to make some tough decisions sometimes to decide which programs we're going to continue to put the time and energy and effort into it, and which ones just do not, at the end of the day, make the agency whole. And as all you all know, last year, we unfortunately did decide to phase out ComHab and RASHab. And it wasn't that great work wasn't being done. It was just not sustainable financially. So the good news is we were able to maintain Patrick and Gia that were in those programs to move into other full-time positions. So at this point, our goal is to look at when funding is up and where we want to put our energy and resources. And that's where those units of service, scorecards, et cetera, are used to determine where is the value. And you've heard everything around the federal government, state and local, they're being asked to really dive into where money is going and where the best value for the funding and where should it go as well. So you're going to see more and more audits coming in. And as you know, with our wonderful corporate compliance department, John and Julia, as you know, anybody can walk in at any day without any announcement saying, I'd like to review this program. So it's important that you continue to work internally as well as you continue to work with our QA department as well. So who else has announcements? No one? So we talked about the annual meeting. Let's go back about tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be 1 o'clock at Hudson House, and that's for anybody that part of the county, like Vet to Vet and Little Britain and Hudson House. We then have from Middletown, we're going to have Port Jervis as well as Home to Stay. And then at the call center, obviously the call center, you have to have specific clearance to be able to be there. So we're all dividing and conquering. Allison and Katie are going to take the lead at Hudson House. Sean and Ariana and Steve are going to take the lead at Middletown. And I'm going to take the lead with Nina and Krista at the call center, and Ariana. I think she's gonna be like almost everywhere tomorrow. So we're picking up the food, the desserts and different things to have everything set up for 1 o'clock. And we hope that you all RSVP'd because that's how we decided how much soup to order from the Olive Garden, okay? Anything changes, please follow up with Ariana ASAP, okay? So that's tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And we're looking forward to celebrating all of your accomplishments. Anything else? Steve, any HR updates?
No, not right now.
Okay, so last month we notified you that we have gone from, I'm going to say the wrong name, Xanadu or something, to to another format. Has that been working fine, Steve?
Yes, we have a program now that has been in effect for a few weeks called On-Demand Pay. And although it's a little different than Zayzoon, uh, it it's even it's even better for our employees because uh, the cost for a transaction is only $1.25, where before the cost for a transaction was $5. And so
Okay, great.
a lot less to pay for a transaction. We do see our anonymous list of people using it and enjoying it, uh, and so we're glad to offer that as MHA, to offer that to all of our employees. You can find it on your self-service portal on Paylocity if you'd like um, some kind of advance on your pay. Just remember that it will come out of your next paycheck automatically. So whatever you get an advance on, you will have to you will see it removed from your pay on the very next paycheck. But use that if you need to, and we're glad to offer it.
Perfect, thank you. And if you're all noticing in your emails, the Employee Assistance Program sends out newsletters, sends out highlights, things to, think about with, just the SAD, seasonal affect disorder. Just things that come out. So if you get the opportunity, take time to read them, or if you do need the Employee Assistance Program, it is 100% there for you as well. And then Sean, can you just give an update on the PTO audit?
Sure. So we conducted an audit on PTO for anyone from 2020 through December of 2024. There were some questions / concerns regarding the transfer over when we went from ADP to Paylocity. That audit is complete. There will be, and it doesn't affect everybody. So there will be some folks we will be making adjustments to their PTO because they are owed hours. Because of, the system. So, we will be contacting you, directly regarding that. Not everyone, this again, doesn't affect everyone, even if you're working that time. You might be, oh, I'm gonna get more hours. No, that's not necessarily the case. Some people actually overused hours, but we are not doing anything regarding that. And it just kind of, it doesn't really hurt the organization, but it does reflect those who we owe hours to, because it's something we have to shore up with our financial audit that's being conducted right now as well. So you will be getting something probably in the next week or two. We're just kind of putting the last final touches on that information. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me without having to go through the whole back channel of how we did it all. But I'll be happy to meet with anyone and show you how we did it. It's easier to do it that way than try to explain it. So.
Excellent, thank you. With the PTO audit, as Sean said, there were some people just based on somehow the system was accruing when they were off, which they should not have accrued hours, but these hours were also taken. So we're not going to take back hours from people. Some people owed hours. We have no idea how the system was able to do that, but it's really important that you keep track where you should be. For example, right now, my wellness says I have 3 hours and something when everybody else is full-time. If they've not used any, has 6 hours and say 67 minutes. And I don't know why mine is off, but those are things that's your responsibility. If you feel like it's taking time and it's not there. One of the changes is once you accrue the maximum for the year, the system stops accruing. Steve is working on with Paylocity that actually stops. So you can actually accrue, but if you come to your anniversary and you haven't used it, you will lose it. The people that have significant buckets being put back into their PTO will be met with, as Sean said, with Steve and or Sean to say, this is what we put back into your bucket based on the audit. You have this amount of time to use it or lose it. We changed the amount that you can actually carry over based on years of service. So the maximum is if you're 20 years, you can carry over 10 weeks. which is 400 hours. So Steve is working on I call it a bank, almost like a bank where you say, take these hours. So let's say I'm 10 years and I can bank 5 weeks. That's 200 hours. It's going to be taken out. You're going to sign that you're having it put there so that you don't lose it. But just remember, if that's your maximum, the next year when you're coming up to your anniversary, that you have to use those hours or you'll lose it. We made a commitment that since the audit took a lot longer than anticipated, that nobody would lose hours, nobody would have to use it by their anniversary. But if you are only owed like 8 hours, you're not going to get another, 6 months to use those 8 hours. So depending on the number of hours that gets put back into your bucket, you will communicate that realistically if you don't think it can happen for you. We learned a couple people, someone at the call center, somebody else in the agency just said, no, I just haven't taken any time. So it's just important that you guys look at wellness, look at time. You look at the fact that we want you to be refreshed and be able to come in and do what you need to do as well. So that is, again, thank you to Sean and working on that. And I know that was lots and lots and lots of document source documents that was used for it. If there's something you don't agree with, then Sean can walk you through his calculations. But like I said, this is something we had hoped to do last year. You all knew we were trying to hire somebody to do it, and we just didn't have anybody apply at this point for those kinds of things. So we're excited to be able to get that off of our plate as our goal to get you fully where you need to be for your hours. Okay. But remember, wellness, you actually have to earn it. I see sometimes people have asked for a full wellness day, but you have not earned it. It's not a full 3 months. So you can only use what you have in your bucket. You cannot go into the negative unless you're someone that used it prior to us going to the staff meeting in, I think, January, where we made the change, or February. Those individuals, if they leave and have not fully earned it, they would have to pay back that time. So it'll come out of your other buckets. So any questions about that before we move on?
No, Angela, I just wanted to reiterate something you said, that even with Paylocity, again, it's pretty easy to look at like how you're earning time and what you have. Please check that, from time to time, and make sure that you feel like you're earning correctly. Because unfortunately, going forward, if for whatever reason you may be earning wrong, like too much, we might have to come to you and say, oh, the wrong button was clicked, and we're gonna have to actually take time away. So, check that, when you get your paycheck, just to make sure, like, we're human, mistakes happen, right? It's a computer system, and, we may have clicked the wrong button or something. Just make sure, or if you think you're earning too low, like, we can double check all of that. And then something that Angela mentioned about carryover and all that, you will see that reflected in the employee handbook. We are literally in the final days of reviewing and making some final tweaks. I have it last month, but it will be done this month and for 2025 and sent out. So I'm working with Steve to do some final tweaks to it probably this week and next week. So you'll see that as well. So that's been my delay because I want to get the audit done. But you'll see that.
Thank you. On another note, just to remind people, you may have more than one date. What I mean by that, you might have an anniversary date for when you started. That is what we used to determine milestones for the agency, the 5, 10, 15, 20, etc. And then you might have an anniversary date in your position. So often people get confused with what anniversary date are we going by. For any of your PTO, your anniversary date is when you started with the agency, okay? For reviews, your anniversary date in your position is what's being used for your, introductory review, annual review, that kind of stuff as well. So we don't change anniversary dates. We don't move them because of your new position. They both get considered totally different anniversary dates. So just, remember that if you're thinking that this came up a couple years ago, somebody's anniversary date came up and the supervisor quickly did a review, but it wasn't their anniversary date for the position. It was their anniversary date with the agency. And this person had done more than one position. So just keep that in mind as well. And thank you to Michelle for sending out when people's reviews are done. If you're working on it, send her an email. Say, Michelle, I'm just finishing up the final touches. My supervisor is going to review it this Friday, and I'm meeting with this person next Wednesday. That's all she needs from you, is to know that you saw the email, you're working on it, you're aware of it as well. And remember, if you need any assistance, really, if you're a new supervisor, your supervisor should be reading the review before you give it, as well as the director of that program should be reading it before it's given as well. Okay, just that way you have that extra support too. Okay. I am going to do some announcements, and then I'm going to hand it over to Allison. So for birthdays, we have Carol in HR. Her birthday's on the 9th. We have Brianna from the call center on the 14th. We have Steve is on the 21st from HR. Sean in admin as well is on the 25th. Chastity from the helpline is on the 26th. Jennifer with BCM is on the 27th. Michelle with HR is on the 28th. Jordan with BCM is on the 29th. Amanda with BCM is on the 30th. James with the helpline is on the 31st. And Ariana is also on the 31st. Anniversaries, we have Gabriella with the call center, is her first year on the 2nd of this month. We have Chastity with the helpline, her first year as well, on the 9th. Maddie with Rape Crisis, her 2nd year on the 11th. Kevin with helpline is his 3rd year on the 12th. Carrie Connors with BCM is her 5th year. Congratulations on the 19th. Trish Skinner is getting her 7th year on the 26th. And Denise with BCM is her first year on the 30th. So happy birthday and happy anniversary to everybody. As a reminder, we increased through our Joy and Work money this year. The gift cards that you can choose from are McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, and now because they're $10, Quick Check. So please see Shelley in accounting to be able to get your little thank you from the agency to celebrate your birthday. With that, there is still no approved budget from the board because we're still waiting for the state to finalize their budget. So as you know, if there are any COLAs or anything like that will take place, they will be retro back to people's anniversary dates for their positions. But at this point, we have no understanding. It's like crickets. Typically, we get lots of feedback, and this is where we're at, and this is what we need you to advocate. But we are not, for some reason, hearing anything. So we have no idea what's going to happen with the state budget. I think the state doesn't know what's going to happen with the state budget because of the federal budget. So at this point, as soon as we know anything, we will continue to communicate that with you. Okay. So I'm now going to hand it over to Allison.
Hi everyone, good morning. So you'll see in the chat, I dropped them in a couple of times because everyone was saying happy birthday and happy anniversary. So I'll start by adding to that happy birthday and anniversary to everyone. But there are 2 things in the chat. We're not going to need them right now. One of them is a handout that kind of highlights all the stuff that we're going to go through today in the training. And the second one you're going to use at the very end, because those of you that don't like group work, I'm just going to let you know up front so you have some time to process it. We're going to do breakout groups at the end, just quick ones, don't worry. So I'm going to share my screen now. Go do my slideshow. All right, so community safety. All right. So today, the very first time I gave this training at Hudson House years ago, I think it was 2022, people thought they were coming to learn self-defense. That is not what we're doing today. Nobody's going to learn how to physically defend with anybody because what we're going to try to do is avoid these situations and also try to de-escalate them when they do happen. So start out by no self-defense today. We're going to talk about risk assessment techniques. We're going to talk about de-escalation strategies, and I know so many of you are experts in that area, so feel free to unmute and chime in at any point. We're going to also talk about resources and talk about some laws. So first of all, most of the time we are absolutely safe. We're in an incident-free environment. But the thing is, it's important to be prepared, because when something does happen, that's not when you want to come up with a plan. We want to be able to work together, kind of know what each other are doing, know what the expectations are. So we're going to go through some signs of dangerous situations, remembering always to notify management. There's no security staff here. I need to remove that. But anybody who's in management or in that administrative leadership building position, in order to make more informed decisions. So just some quick stats here. I do data management as well. So U.S. workers accounted for, healthcare workers have accounted for 2/3 of the non-fatal workplace violence. Now that includes, anybody in hospitals, ERs, that sort of thing. Social workers themselves, which is closer to what we're doing, found that they had a 14.7% of physical assaults perpetrated by clients. That's 2005. And 3.8% had declined since the assault. So it's on the decline. And I think that's because of programs like this. I need to go through and update some of these stats. But when we move to community-based programs and meeting people where they're at, like the work that we do every day, it's much less likely that you're going to experience a physical assault or violence. Preventing violence. So a couple of things to keep in mind. One of the best predictors of future violence is past violence. So just being aware if someone has that history, and knowing their triggers. Certain feelings. So, anybody that's feeling powerless, humiliation, boredom, grief, fear, they're more likely to perpetrate an incident of violence. And that makes sense, right? So what we want to do is empower those individuals and make them feel like they're not hopeless, and that they do have choices other than to escalate a situation to physical factors. Also, of course, use of drugs of alcohol. Anything that's going to cause chaos in the brain is going to cause chaos in your environment. So it's going to make you less predictable. Again, that's all around. A lot of times it's confusion and feeling that sense of humiliation and shame that are really going to trigger people. Of course, we also know that brain trauma has a huge factor, and there are many of our program participants that do have that TBI and thus may have less of an ability to control those emotions. And again, you just need to be aware of that. Situational factors are also predictive violence. Any situation where there is a handgun or other sort of firearm is more likely to end in a fatality. And that makes sense because firearms are quick. And that's why if you see a weapon at any point, we'll go over this during the training, that you do need to exit the situation and inform your supervisor. All right, situational awareness is one of the biggest things around preventing you being in a situation. So stay alert. It's easy to get in my head. I personally like to think about things like, what am I going to say to the client? How is this visit going to go? What are my goals here? What's in their plan? But get out of your head and get into your body and recognize what's going on around you. If it feels risky, don't do it. Know that we do social work. We are not superheroes. So you don't need to be a hero. Removing yourself from a dangerous situation is the best thing you can do. And also trust your gut. I'm not saying to be paranoid. I'm saying to be reasonable. But if your gut tells you something is wrong or different, your brain is likely reading something that's changed that you're just not recognizing consciously. That's a point to either, depending on the strength of that feeling, either removing yourself or just taking a moment to pause, look around, and figure out what has changed, and is that change a threat? And if it doesn't feel right, avoid it. So we're going to start with safety in public. Obviously, going in groups when possible, walking in well-lighted areas, be alert to suspicious activity. Something's going on the other side of the street. We work in areas where sex work is happening, where there are illicit substances being dealt. You just want to avoid that. You know what that looks like after a while. Walk on the other side of the street, park away from it, do as much as you can to avoid those situations. This is one that I'm very guilty of, is I like to have lots of pouches and bags. Don't carry anything that you don't need to, especially when you're going into a home or a visit, because those are things that are easy to grab, it makes you a larger target. Carry your pocketbooks and briefcases securely. So, you know, if you have a crossbody bag, that's great. That's going to make it more secure than carrying it on one shoulder. So if you do have to carry your laptop bag or pocketbook for whatever reason, because I know sometimes we do concurrent noting inside of a visit, just make sure you carry it across your body rather than on a shoulder. That's going to make it a lot more secure. You do want to make sure that you never carry more money than you're willing to lose, which is a great suggestion, because you could just easily lose a pocketbook or something like that. I know a lot of us don't carry cash as much anymore, but just being aware of only having on what you need, because the more you expose those sorts of sensitive things like credit cards and debit cards out there in the world, there are people with little things that can scan them, and then that can cause a big headache for you. Another thing, always have your ID on you, that you are an MHA employee. It should be visible when you're out in public. You know, and so that people are aware of who you are and who you represent and why you would be in that area. Another great point is to make sure your cell phone is always fully charged. If you work in the field here at MHA, or if you're in leadership, you have a cell phone for a reason. That's a lot of it is due to safety. Make sure that it's charged. A uncharged cell phone is just a brick. It's not going to help you out in the situation that you need. So make sure that your cell phone is fully charged when you go out in the field, and avoid uncomfortable situations. So, safety in the field really starts before you leave the office. Do an assessment. This doesn't have to take long. It can take a couple quick minutes to just sit down and consider about the individual's history, what sort of violence they've had in the past, have they had recent negative interactions with the agency, and just familiarize yourself with that. Again, we're not going to suspend visits because of these conflicts, but it's something to be aware of, because the last thing you want to do is trigger somebody. You want to consider also where the neighborhood is and exercise extra caution, like avoiding wearing jewelry, or going in isolated areas. Necklaces, you'll notice that our lanyards are pull-aways, and the reason for that is that if someone does try to grab that on you, it will simply break away, rather than making it a choking hazard. So do be careful when you're considering going out wearing things around your neck. Create a safety plan. We do this for our clients all the time, and we know safety plans work because you wrote it down and you thought about it. It could be very simple, but just writing it down that I'm going to check the client history and check in with my supervisor before I go out. I'm going to think about the area that I'm going to be in. I am going to, you know, what I'm going to do if I encounter something, and decide all those things beforehand, because if you've thought about them, you're going to have a plan in place and you're going to go into that plan. If you haven't thought about them, that's when you make mistakes, and do things that could aggravate the situation. So just create a simple plan and follow it every time. So if drugs or alcohol are being used on the premises, or somebody appears to be under the influence, we do ask that you terminate the visit in a non-confrontational manner, because, you know, if you're out there working on goals, you can't work on a goal with somebody who is currently on a substance and not able to engage. If there's a crisis response warranted, we have an amazing resource called the Orange County Crisis Call Center. I have called 311. I'm sure many of you out there have called 311. They are there to help us. They can also send out the mobile response team to assist that individual in crisis, and we can stay on scene. Just because something is escalated doesn't mean that you necessarily have to leave. It just means you're calling your backup. You're calling your supervisor, letting them know what's going on as well. If you are in imminent danger, or you believe imminent danger exists for someone else, you can call 911 first and then contact your supervisor. If you need an APS or CPS report, that's something you can discuss with your supervisor, and we talked about that last month. If drugs are found or brought to a program staff, or to contact local police. I've had this happen at our old Hudson House. I don't know if you guys know where that was on Broadway, where I had a participant bring in a couple little baggies of a white powdery substance, I don't know what it was, from outside on the sidewalk, and we had to contact the Newburgh police. They initially, by the way, as a funny little story, told me to bring it to the police station, and I said, absolutely not. I will not be going in my car with these drugs. So they were able to come and pick up. Now, if you do need to suspend a community visit, if there's concern about safety, you are absolutely able to do that. The first thing you need to do is then reach out to your supervisor and explain to them the situation. The case is going to be evaluated then within 48 hours between your supervisor, your director, Sean and Angela may be involved, because it's not often that we're going to suspend visits for somebody, because the services we do are community-based and in person. So likely what you're going to be doing with that team is working out a plan where it may be safe, or to change whatever was unsafe about that environment. No weapons of any types are permitted on the premises of MHA program sites or supported housing residences. So if weapons are found in those areas, staff are to notify their supervisor and the chain of command immediately. That does mean stun guns, anything that's a weapon. So I've had staff share in the past that they have their taser in their purse. That is a weapon. We can't bring it into work. Same thing is for knives and things like that. Let your supervisor know immediately. All right, time for a knowledge check. Hopefully my polls work. Bringing them up. Yes, community safety poll number 1. All right, during the home visit, you notice something in the environment has changed from a previous visit. Maybe new people are present, furniture is rearranged, there's an unusual odor, or it's just weird vibes. What should you do next? Go ahead and answer that. And this is kind of like, I don't know if you guys have kids, Regents tests where there's more than one okay answer, but I'm asking you to pick the best right answer. All right, it's coming in. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm ending the poll. I'm going to share the results. All right, so we had 16% say continue as planned, but stay alert to potential risks. 70% were at B, pause outside and discreetly assess the changes and consider modifying your approach. 10% down here at immediately leave and call your supervisor before further instructions and directly ask the client about the changes before entering. The most correct answer is B. Close this. All right, next slide is B. Pause outside and discreetly assess changes and consider modifying your approach. Now, I'm guessing the ones that want to call your supervisor right away are probably new. And that's okay, because you don't know what things look like. You talk to your supervisor about it. That's okay. But it may be an innocuous change. You know, maybe they just rearrange their furniture, or maybe they got an unexpected bill, so they're feeling tense. It may have nothing to do with you, not be a safety situations. So the best thing to do is pause and evaluate. And at that point, if you notice more things, say you've noticed some powdery substances on a mirror on the table, and you notice someone is holding something onto their hip, like there may be a weapon there, that's when you want to step back and end the visit and call your supervisor immediately. So I'm going to ask you guys, because you're the experts, what subtle environmental shifts have you noticed in the past visits that indicated a potential risk? Anybody that wants to answer that, unmute and share away.
Hi. I've had people, like, you're going to see a client, you're expecting just the client, but they have like random family members there, and you know how you feel vibes, and you can definitely like self-evaluate. And it was supposed to be like a very long visit, but you basically are like, hey, just checking in. Okay, great. Do you need anything right now? And then kind of make sure that you're safe and X, Y, and Z. Like, definitely feel the vibe of the presence of like people that are not supposed to be there before, you know, paperwork is very important, but your safety is even more important.
Yeah, excellent point. So you kind of answered the second question there. How can you balance safety awareness while maintaining rapport with the client? Trish, you did a great job there, because, you know, you didn't let them know anything was wrong. You know, you don't need to evaluate those family members. They're not in most of their visits, but you got weird vibes. Maybe the person doesn't even want to reveal health information in front of them. So you kept it quick. You did what you need to do, and you kept your to-do list for later. Client is unaware. and you can follow up. Now, what happens if someone and a situation escalates unexpectedly? Anybody want to share some exit strategies? Trish has kind of excused herself from that situation and that worked well. Does anybody else have anything that works well for them?
So just to kind of go off of what Trish was saying before, I have a client, a mutual client with Jason, and he brought this up to me that my client does consume alcohol. And I've noticed within our last encounters, his speech has been slurred. And so that is a bit concerning to me because at that point, he's also brought up conversations that he doesn't recall that we've had. So kind of what I know I have to meet him in person, but also keeping that in mind that when I do meet him in person, just kind of checking in to see if he's drank or how much he has been drinking for that day.
Yeah, absolutely important because that's going to make it a lot less predictable. And he's not able to engage, like you said, because he's not going to remember those conversations about those goals. And so it doesn't make the work meaningful. We know, and I talk about this in orientation, so you guys have heard that if there's a substance involved, it is incredibly hard to address any sort of mental health concerns because you don't know what is a substance use symptom and what is mental health. So yeah, that's definitely, and involve, I love that you were talking with Jason because that's another great way to really reinforce safety is talking to other people that work with that person because we know that people tell different people different things or show different sides of themselves. So working as a team can really be important. And if you have somebody that's a shared client like Angie and Jason, you can go out and see them together because then you're in the same space. You start using that buddy system. Thank you guys so much. So inside the building, safety has to happen there as well. Some of our locations like Hudson House have clients actively here, but I know that so often I go to Middletown and I see clients waiting in the waiting area to, turn in paperwork or meet with their care manager or whoever they're coming to meet with. And there's lots of humans in and out of our buildings. So you want to keep your work area organized and secure. Lock up any of your valuables that you bring to work. When you're exiting and entering the building, again, most our locations, I can't think of one that is unsafe, but when we were at Hudson House on Broadway, because there was so much community activity, we're kind of in isolated areas now. That we really had to be mindful of going out. But anytime you're leaving any building, be aware of what's going on the other side of that door. Be aware if there's a group of people hanging outside or someone chilling in the car by the front. And if someone comes and asks about one of your coworkers being in the building, don't let them know if they're there or not. Because there may be something going on that you don't want to know. You can say, hold on, I'm going to go get someone to help you. Something that's not confirming whether someone's there or not, because we don't know what they want to do. And report everything. If you see something, say something. I know we had this at the beginning of the year with not necessarily a safety issue, but our generator issue. It was making a loud beeping noise all day, and we all just said, oh, it's making a loud beeping noise. And then we found out later that it was something. So if you hear something, see something, say something. Better to look over cautious than to leave something unsaid or unaddressed. I know that when I came over, I used to be very much in a military space and I lived on a military base. And so when I started working in nonprofits with individuals that were experiencing homelessness, having suitcases around all the time that weren't always attended, like set off big alarm bells for me. And then we learned that, what that looks like and when things are safe. So don't be afraid to be wrong. Better to say something than not. And always, 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 no matter where you are, the first thing you should know is how to get out of there. Because not just because of individuals, but things like fire, emergencies, always know where your exit is. I know I have troubles with that in the Little Britain office somehow in that little space. I get turned around all the time. All right, safety in your vehicle. So much of what we do is out in the community. Keep your doors locked at all times. You get in the car, lock the door. That means you're controlling your environment. It's not just when you go to a certain neighborhood or when you see certain people. For everyone, that means you're controlling your environment. Control what you can. Always park in well-lit areas. Thank God we do most of our work during the day, but during the winter months, it gets dark so incredibly early. So be mindful of being parked in a well-lit area. Don't park between two giant vans. It's super easy for you to disappear then, because again, people can't see you. A lot of what I'm saying is the same. Scan the area. Look before exiting the vehicle. Remember where you're parked. It's easier on your phone now. My phone will literally put a little pin. You can also text yourself. You can take a picture because you don't want to be wandering around looking for it. Park as close to the business as you can. Walk with others when possible. Have your keys out and ready. I know some vehicles now have the fob where you can just open the door, and that's great. But if not, have your keys in your hand because you don't want to be fumbling with them. And before you get in your car, take a minute, look underneath. And look in the back seat. And if there's any sign of forced entry, just like with a home, don't enter it because you don't know what's going on in there. That's when you go and ask for help. Let's see here. Don't exit your vehicle. Have your phone ready to use. Of course, we're not recommending driving and talking on the phone, even with hands-free when you're in an agency vehicle, but have it there. Don't have it tucked away in your purse. Have it up there in the front console if you need it. And pay attention if you're being followed. I can't think of a time when that happened related to MHA, but I know Angela's experienced it one time where someone followed her all the way home from a class she was teaching. And it turned out to be okay, maybe. I mean, it was okay because Angela's okay, but their intent was a little questionable. So just being mindful of those sorts of things, you can call for help if you need to. If you are being followed, change directions and go back to the business. Drive to somewhere that's busy. You can call 911 from your cell phone, and of course, avoid isolated areas. Again, having people nearby is often all you need for protection. So we do transport people quite a bit. So again, New York driving cell phone laws, we don't recommend even on hands-free using them because it is a distraction. If you have a passenger in the car, that's already another distraction. Always get out of the car and greet the individual. That way you can do a quick assessment. You know, Angie, you can smell if there's a little bit of alcohol in the breath or if someone's stumbling or if you can tell when someone's mad. Another tip when you're driving on multi-lane roads, try to stay in the right lane as much as possible. Obviously, we're all going the speed limit or below in agency vehicles during work. In our personal vehicles. So we probably should be in the slow lane. We're going to make people mad in the left lane. But another advantage to that is you can pull over quickly should something happen. I could only think of one time that there was an incident in an agency vehicle where violence kind of broke out, and that was in the Hudson House van. But the first thing you would do if that happens is to pull over, because obviously you cannot be dealing with a physical assault while doing that. Everybody needs to wear a seatbelt. I have done social club and I have had this argument with individuals because I think the law is in taxis. You don't necessarily, passengers don't have to if they're in the back seat, or I don't know. At least that's the colloquial law that a lot of people follow. But in MHA vehicles, everyone needs to be wearing their seatbelt at all times. You're gonna also want to just be vigilant just as about that passenger's demeanor and persona, and then all of the MHA stuff, because this is around vehicle safety as well. Make sure you have your snow brush and ice scraper. You don't want to have, at this time of year, snowstorms pop up and the ice gets on there and you have no scraper in your vehicle. That's a safety issue as well. Make sure your mileage log is up to date. Again, that's around safety and regulations. Make sure your registration, it is your responsibility not to get the registration for the vehicle unless you're on the admin team, but to make sure if you're taking a vehicle out that it has a current registration. If it is not current, if the inspection and registration are not current, that means the vehicle is not ready to use. You need to let Ariana know, not Angela. You need to let Ariana know, and she'll make sure that those get updated as soon as possible. But if you drive it out into public, that risks the agency and yourself getting a possible ticket. So you do want to be aware of that as well. All right. So people under the influence of a mental health crisis. So they're an active crisis. All we're doing is really offering assistance and offering to help. We don't need to gather information. We don't need to challenge them. We want to make sure that we are asking, what can I do to help you? What do you need? Giving them that support. Because again, a lot of times violence comes out of feeling like there's no other option. So we want to give them those other options and other avenues. We want to make sure you need to be self-aware. I kind of miss masks because it covered half of my face. Because you want to remain as neutral as possible. You want to be relaxed in your body, and you want to use slow and deliberate movements. Even if someone gets loud, don't match their volume. Go lower. So they have to be quiet to hear you. Wherever they're doing, stay at their eye level. So if they're sitting down, sit down. If they're standing up, stand up. Make sure, because if you're standing up and not sitting down, that feels very authoritarian. And if you're sitting down while they're standing up, that kind of gives the impression that you're not taking this seriously if they're, in that space. The goal is to be stable and respectful, and make that person feel safe. The safer they feel, the faster they're going to de-escalate. Another thing, just in case, we don't always succeed in the de-escalation, and just in case, you always want to make sure you keep that 6 feet between you and an individual, and just stand slightly off to the side. It's easier to run directly at somebody than it is to run it at a diagonal line, and that way you can simply step away. And that 6 feet we've gotten really good at during COVID. So just keeping that personal space, you have a reaction, 3-second reaction time for 6 feet. So that gives you a minute to think about how you're going to react to that. If you say something wrong, say you're sorry. Don't say I didn't mean it that way and start to get confrontational. Say I'm sorry. It doesn't matter at this moment. You are not the focus. They're the focus. So you want to focus on de-escalating their feelings and just validating any concerns that they have, and make sure that they know that you're here to help them. So environmental risk assessments, high stress situations. We know that we're more likely if people are stressed out. So if there's an eviction coming up, or there's a big family change happening, or there's been a death in the family, those are situations you want to be aware of. Again, not necessarily going to have a violent situation, but it's more likely to happen under these circumstances. Severe weather also can really get people worked up. The hurricanes, snow. You see how regular people can, not regular, people who without a mental health diagnosis or any sort of additional stressors on them, go to the grocery store before a snowstorm. So you can imagine somebody who has panic disorder or anxiety disorder, how that would affect them. Financial challenges. Those, one of the biggest things is getting more and more expensive to live. So having those financial challenges, again, being aware if someone's going through something where they can't pay their bills, is going to affect their ability to control those emotions. And dark and isolated locations. So when a hostile situation does present itself, we want to de-escalate it. And if you feel threatened at any time, don't worry, call for assistance. 311, your supervisor. If your supervisor is not available, any other person in your program, your director, and you can call Angela and Sean. I promise they will pick up. They do almost all the time. I don't know how they do it, but they always pick up no matter how busy they are to support you. So anyone, don't worry about calling for help or advice. The goal of de-escalation is to reduce agitation, so you can sit down and have a talk. Most of the things are resolved by communication. Most problems are caused by miscommunication. So sometimes a situation can be adjusted by altering our behavior. We're the ones in control of our emotions in that situation. So helping someone to co-regulate and get to where you're at is going to de-escalate the situation. So you want to make sure that you are not feeling any of those stressful feelings, that you're able to remain composed and calm. And definitely after a situation like this, go talk to your supervisor or utilize EAP, because suppressing all of that, it's natural to feel fear. It's natural to get cortisone going. And what we're asking you to do is to control your face, control your body, control your language. And that can create a lot of stress for you. So take advantage of talking to your supervisor, who's definitely been through this before, talk to your coworkers, but also utilize EAP, because engaging in these stressful situations while remaining calm can have a big impact on your personal well-being. So some ways to talk to a person who's in crisis. You can think of ladder, and this is in your handout as well. You want to look at the person. You don't want to be looking away, like looking for exits. That's why it's important to know your surroundings before this starts. Ask questions. Don't interrupt anybody. Don't change the subject. And again, for like the millionth time, be aware of your own emotions. And you can respond with nonverbal cues like nodding. It's just we're really using those active listening skills at this point, repeating back what we hear to make sure that it is what they're saying, offering them places to expand those thoughts, and validating through nonverbal cues like nodding, and those sorts of things. So you want to be always be prepared to look for nonverbal warning signs, like people making a fist or balling up. You can tell when it starts to get tense. Think ahead. Those are times when you see it coming, because someone's getting tense. That's when you start to monitor your tone. You start to you don't want to intimidate. We're not intimidating anybody into submission here. We're working with them to get them to a place where they can engage in the behavior that we're expecting in whatever environment we're in. You can use sentences like, I am uncomfortable because, you are making me uncomfortable because, like, you want to talk about what you're feeling, learn about what they're feeling, and you can talk about what you're feeling. You don't want to say, I see you're angry. And they say, I'm not angry, I'm frustrated. Let's see, that escalated that a little bit. You can say, I feel, intimidated in this moment. I feel uncomfortable. I feel, about what you're feeling rather than them. All right, second knowledge poll check. This. I don't know why it's not letting me. Okay. There we go. So sorry for that. Okay, you were meeting with a client who appears to be in crisis, either experience a mental health episode or actively under the influence of a substance. You can't always tell. They are becoming increasingly agitated. What is the most effective first response? You guys are smart cookies. I'll share this answer in a minute. And thank you all for participating. I can see how many of you are participating, and it makes me really happy that you're all engaged. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ending the poll. All right, sharing the results. So the most correct right answer is to give them space, lower your tone, and use non-threatening body language by assessing their needs. Firmly telling them to calm down and regain control of themselves, again, that's very authoritarian, and people are then going to respond to that. Telling someone what to do rather than asking them what they need is going to evoke a response. Immediately calling 911. Now, if you see a weapon there or someone's starting to take a swing, that's when you're starting to call and reach out for that 911 help. We want to try to do everything we can to not have our individuals involved with law enforcement unless we need to, because we know that a lot of times for them, they have a history. Sometimes we have a history as well. So making sure that we do everything we can first. So if you see a weapon or, someone is experiencing active violent hallucinations, that's maybe when you call out. Confronting them about their behavior and setting strict boundaries for the conversation, that is maybe later on. And, maybe you had to suspend someone from program like Hudson House. When you're coming together to talk about what happened, once everyone is calm, that's where you can establish those boundaries and give them examples of behavior, but not in the crisis moment. Again, that's going to escalate things. All right. I'm going to close this. All right. So answer D, give them space. Let's see here. What are the key differences in de-escalating strategies when someone is experiencing a mental health crisis versus a substance use effects? I mean, this is a great question, and I'd love to hear from the audience. What do you do differently in a mental health crisis versus substance use? No one? I know we've experienced this. All right, so in a mental health crisis, we're going to again refer to that patient's history and some de-escalation strategies that have worked. With a substance, it is less likely we're going to engage in meaningful conversation just because they are in an inebriated state. So working toward getting that person to a safe place and removing them from the situation that they're in, I think would be the biggest difference. Because you're not going to work on goals or go back to behavior history around substance use. You're going to try and de-escalate it and work with that individual when they're sober, hopefully, or get in touch with, say, substance use programs if they're willing to engage in that sort of behavior. Anybody have any verbal or nonverbal cues that work for them really well in a tense situation?
I've had experience in the past with a client. I knew that he had a tendency of becoming aggressive. So his way of coping with things, he would technically kind of shut down.
Mhm.
And over time, he would let me know if he wasn't in the mood to speak to whomever he was dealing with. So I would know, and at the time, I would let the clinician know, hey, he's not feeling it today. So when I tell you to stop asking him questions, just stop. Just leave him alone, give him a couple minutes, he'll come back. And then because he didn't like clinicians or psychiatrists, at the time I was a peer, so he would talk to me and he would want me to relay that message, although we're in the same room. And then on one occasion, they kept asking him questions, and I was like, okay, just leave him alone. Leave him alone, give him a couple minutes. He was really upset. And then he completely shut down. His face got red. And then I realized that he started becoming really tense. His shoulders got really tense. So I was sitting at the time almost across from him. I turned my angle in the way I was sitting because I had a feeling he was going to go into crisis. He did. He got up and he threw a chair against the wall and he ran. And he ran out, and they wanted me to go chase. I said, I'm not chasing him. I said, at this point, he has ran out of the building. At this point, we got to get law enforcement involved. He's in full crisis. So we ended up reaching out to mobile, the crisis response team to see how they can assist and just kind of letting him calm down. I reached out to him, and unfortunately, because of that situation, we were no longer able to see him in person. We had to do, telehealth until we were able to find another way to be able to help him in that process. But for me, once I started seeing that he started doing that, like he started balling up his fists, and I realized he got really tense and he shut down. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna turn because I feel it coming.
Yeah. Yeah. And trust those instincts, because once you know somebody and you built that rapport. Thank you so much, Angie.
Allison, actually, I have a few pointers. At my previous employer, when I used to go into the homes, not specifically say like I'm checking in on your energy, just call them and let them know like I'm on my way to see what type of mood they're in. If something was triggering throughout the day. And then what I would usually do is I will always tell my staff, when you get a new client, look at their SPOA, look at their triggers, look at just to kind of see what you're walking into that can help them. So I always had this one client, she will write like songs and poetry. And every time I knew she was upset when I would go in there, one time we made a whole song and she was playing it for everybody. And she was like, I feel like it's just kind of just checking in prior to going in so you know what you're walking into and you're prepared of what to say, not just like plan it out, but just know what you're walking into so you know how to handle the situation, you're prepared.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's so important. And you're just calling to let them know you're coming, which sometimes just a surprise knock on the door is a trigger for people. And what you guys are talking about too is building that rapport with those clients. You guys know those clients so well, and you can be such a positive influence. Like if they had listened to you in that situation, Angie, I don't know that guy would have thrown that chair and he would not have had law enforcement involved. And you know how traumatic those things are. So you guys are so integral because you know these people well, and you know what helps and what hurts. So trust that information and continue to use it. And calling before just to say I'm coming is a great way. You can tell so much from tone. Sometimes people start telling you things. So just again, being situationally aware and knowing of what you're walking into is so incredibly important. So we talked about most of this. Don't respond to complaints with more complaints. So again, not building on top of other people, like someone complaining about you being 5 minutes late, and you're like, oh, well, I came 3 times last month and you weren't even at home. So, going tit for tat is just going to escalate things. Don't argue or try to convince them that they're wrong. And again, be aware of your own reactions and just control what you can, which a lot of is yourself. Never turn your back for any reason. You don't want to be walking away. So you can do the like talking and backing up thing if you know where the door is. Always be the same eye level. Don't stand head on. And this is one where I really miss my mask because what's a natural reaction to anxiety is to laugh or giggle or smile. And that can really look like mockery to someone that's in crisis, understandably so. So fix your face. Try and remain as neutral as possible. You don't want to be surprised. You don't want to be angry. You want to be neutral because there's already enough emotion in that room. Let's see here. You don't want to ask why questions. You can ask, what do you mean? How has this affected you? Don't ask those questions that don't have an easy answer. And answer all questions. No matter what they ask you, you're going to answer questions. Because again, a lot of times violence comes from feeling powerless. Angie's example, that gentleman had done what he knew to do, to ask Angie to repeat things and don't ask questions. And those clinicians, it sounds like we're not necessarily taking that seriously. To answer those questions seriously and take their responses seriously. It's all about respect. You can explore alternatives and available choices. Again, a lot of times violence comes when they feel like there's no other option and they're powerless. So give them other options. Get input from someone on how to solve the problem. Because again, just like when we're doing our everyday work with our clients and participants, they're in control. So get input from them because you don't know necessarily what resources they have or what's changed. So put them in the driver's seat. Try to make a working agreement. And if possible, you can seek out your supervisor or a third person to help. This is where situational awareness comes in with us as well. I'm not in program anymore. But if something was going on outside my door, regardless of whether it was my program or not, I'll keep my ears open. And if someone needs my backup, just as another person being there, I'll pop in and be able to support them. And any supervisor, manager, or experienced staff member is available to support you. We're all on the same team, and you're all getting the same training. So we all know what the expectations are. So don't be afraid to ask for or offer support. At the same time, if someone's having a crisis, you don't need to have 10 people there. So also be aware of that. No office procedures. Don't threaten in return. Stay calm but firm. And all of your responses should be immediate and without anger. You don't want to trigger that shame or guilt because those are some really powerful triggers. And if you lean into anybody's shame or guilt, you're going to get a response and it's probably going to be big. So you want to stay from anything away that would trigger those buttons in them. All right, last knowledge poll. Oop. Oh no, don't look at that. All right, launching this poll. You're working with a client who becomes increasingly agitated, pacing and raising their voice. What's the most effective way to respond physically and verbally? I love those confident answers that were coming in before I finished the question out loud. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ending the poll. Okay, you guys, 100%. You got 100%. I don't know if it's because you saw the screen, but take a step back. Because again, remember, we're going to see give the space in between us. We're going to validate their emotions. We're going to use a calm tone, but make sure that it's not condescending. So you did great. All right, we talked about a bunch of this. And this I am going to send out as well today. It's it's a little complicated on the screen. But when we talked earlier about creating your own personal safety plan, this is a template that will help you answer those questions. So you want to talk about awareness, how you assess, anticipation, and then what do I need to do? So, and it breaks it down into self, environment, client, and policy and law. So I encourage you to complete this. and have it around. Just have it available to you. Writing it down is going to make you remember it so much better. Because again, if you have a plan, your body's going to go into play, and your body and mind will go into that plan. If you don't have a plan, having a ton of cortisol in your body and being stressed out in a situation is not the time to make one. So, I encourage you to use this template once it's sent out. And our last activity, I'm going to ask you guys to open the Word document that I put in the chat earlier that says scenarios. The other one's a handout that you can refer to. And I'm going to put you into 8 breakout groups. You're going to do the scenario for the number that it connects with your group number. So if you're group number 2, you'll do scenario 2. If you're group number 1, you'll do scenario number 1, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to break you guys into random groups. And I will give you 7 minutes to do this. Pretty quick. And just come back with something that you learned from your group and or situation. All right, going in now.
took us out. They took us out.
Thank you, everybody. I'm just waiting for everybody to return. We have 27 seconds for people. They can choose to come out of the room or they'll get kicked out in 21 seconds. All right, everybody should be back. So the last thing I would like to do is just have someone from each group share something that they learned or a strategy that they used in their scenario that the rest of us could implement in our work as well. Because all these scenarios, I hope they were relatable. And you can let me know that too in your response. So group number 1. Anyone from group number 1 that would like
Was
to
I
share?
group number 1?
So our scenario, I'll read the
Yes.
scenario. So you're conducting a scheduled home visit for a client with a history of severe anxiety and PTSD. When you arrive, the client seems more agitated than usual, pacing and avoiding eye contact as you begin discussing their case plan, their care plan. They suddenly start shouting about how nobody listens and begin aggressively pacing toward the door. So the first question was, what are your immediate safety considerations? We talked about being aware of where the exits are, whether or not like there's a clear path to the exit, whether or not the person has blocked you from the exit, your awareness of whether or not they have a history of like violent reactivity. We talked about de-escalation strategies, and one thing Michelle brought up that was like sounded very useful was like somatic practices. So like maybe like grounding the person in their body, or like you engaging in certain somatic practices so that they could mimic and you're both doing it together. And talking about like, what are you like 5 things that you're seeing, or 2 things that you're hearing right now, or 1 thing that you're like feeling in like a tactile sense to like get them out of their head and like back into their body.
I love that. I love that. For those of you that don't know, somatic is anything that gets you like Lainey said, grounded and back in your body and out of that anxiety state. So those are great ones. Like the 1 thing you hear, 2 things you smell, and working up to 5 things, getting them to really reorient to their situation. And it sounds like you guys also use that co-regulation strategy where you're doing that with them and showing them, modeling the breathing and the relaxation and all that. Great work, group 1. Group 2.
Okay, that was our group. So you are co-facilitating a family support group session when a parent becomes visibly upset while discussing their child's services. They begin interrupting other participants, raising their voice and making accusations about how MHA staff are not doing enough, and other parents in the group appear to be uncomfortable. So we basically discussed, making them feel like they're being heard, but also indicating that this type of conversation is probably not appropriate in a group setting, and like a separate conversation could be had, just to see if there's anything like that we can maybe do better, or kind of like to be able to hear their concerns further. And then just letting them know, like, basically, if it continued, like they wouldn't be able to stay in the group, especially if they started using like profanities, or they were becoming violent, or, they were just continuing on, just because we wouldn't want it to affect the rest of the parents in the group. And that was basically it.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of like experience with working in group settings in our department, but like we have been in situations where, maybe we see a client, like I shared an example, and, it wasn't a group setting, but the client had her parents there, and it was like a toxic situation. And I was trying to work with the parent, and the dad was more like, kind of making her feel bad by expressing all of these concerns that he had about her, and ended up in an argument. So in that sense, I brought the client outside and kind of separated her with me so that I can like de-escalate her there and then. But I would presume it would be the same behavior if we were in a group. you know, a group
Yeah.
setting with clients.
Absolutely. I think Hudson House Social Club can speak to that kind of thing. It's ideal if you have another staff member there. And that's why when, you know, we try to do these groups that we have more than one person. So someone can, Hudson House is actually ideal because you can see outside through the glass. So someone can monitor from a little bit away and separating them and practicing all those de-escalation techniques while allowing the group to still be therapeutic for everybody else. Right. So great work. All right. Group number 3.
Hi, we had a scenario where a client was under the influence for our visit, so we said that we would approach the client gently, but express our concern and suggest that we reschedule the visit. And we'd also want to assess if this is a new behavior or something part of their history, and then determine if additional support would be needed. And then also, depending on the circumstance, we might want to involve a coworker for added support if we felt that was needed.
Excellent, excellent. I expect no less from you, Caitlin, because I'm sure you've been in all of these situations and all the scenarios. So yes, validating their feelings, offering to reschedule. And then what I loved about what you said is then figuring if this is a new behavior and like what's going on. Do we need to involve the psychiatrist? Do we need to involve someone else in their care team? Is it a change in their family dynamics? You know, figuring out what the root of that is, but not necessarily in that moment with that client, kind of doing that more exploration later. All right, next group.
So we had scenario number 4, disruptive behavior at a social program. So basically, like during a group, one of the members becomes increasingly disruptive, making loud jokes at others' expenses and refusing to follow group rules. So how do you intervene in a way that maintains the group safety? We had Bianca and Christian in our group, so straight from the pros. Working as a team is something that was talked about, having one person maintain the group's discussion while another person engages that individual individually or personally. Steps to take to de-escalate. We talked about that it depends on the client and the rapport that you have with the client, but one option would be kind of like privately sitting next to them and engaging them in conversation, seeing if they want to talk privately or they want to take a walk, if they want to like remove themselves from the group, if they've got something, you know, basically removing the audience in this situation. And then when should a supervisor or security be involved? So Hudson House supervisors always within arm's distance. So something to consider would be if the supervisor has a better rapport with that person, or if, you know, considering whether a male or female staff member would be, if the client would be more receptive to engaging with somebody like that, that's something that we would take into consideration.
Great, exactly. You got the perfect group for that question. Perfect group. And I love that. So just really knowing what those protocols are, assessing if someone has a really good rapport. I know that when I worked in program, I would call Trish or Caitlin and say, it seems like you have a really good relationship with this person. You know, I have, they're upset about this situation. I've tried de-escalation. Do you have anything that you can offer to me, or, you know, any tips or tricks? Or could you make the phone call on my behalf, you know, and I can sit with you and help to de-escalate this client, engage them, whatever we're doing. So really evaluating who has that better rapport and who might be the better person to sit down and talk with that person. And it's all about, again, knowing that client, building that history, and having that rapport to know how we react, because we're going to react differently depending on who it is. So great work. Group 5. No one in group 5? Okay, we'll move on to group 6. I didn't keep a record, so group 5 is being secretive. Group 6. Did we not have the last couple groups? 7? Was anybody in group 7 or 8?
We were in
Sorry.
8.
Sorry, we were 6. I was talking and the mute button was off. It was on, I mean.
Okay, that explains it. I thought somehow we lost our top 3 groups. All right, so 6, go ahead.
We had an angry phone call at the crisis call center, 988 helpline staff. You receive a call at the Orange County Crisis Call Center, 988, from a caller who is angry about how they were treated at another agency. They were using profanity, shouting, and demanding immediate action. The conversation is escalating, and they start making vague threats about teaching people a lesson. Actually, we had the perfect group because Nina and Jason and a few other people, I believe, that are part of the call center were there. So we got a good insight. What techniques can you use to de-escalate the call? I know we were discussing like just giving them that validation of just that they're feeling heard, making sure that the profanity and the shouting is not directly towards the actual person that's taking the call, just trying to give them that space to let them vent and just validating, and it's making sure that the teaching people a lesson is not directly towards a specific person at the call center or a specific someone at the other agency, where it now goes to the next question where you bring a supervisor involved. And then just how do you care for yourself after handling high stress calls? They said that, just usually debriefing if they need to take a walk, just making sure that they get the time to, if it was very overwhelming, to take care of themselves and take a moment for themselves if they need to.
Absolutely. Being the recipient of all of that anger, especially if it's not caused, but even if it caused, but it doesn't matter. Being the recipient is very overwhelming. So take care of yourself. And again, if someone is threatening, sometimes again, they're just saying, things need to change and you're going to regret this. Later on, you want to find out what that means. Are they saying something against a particular individual? Again, do they have a plan? Is this something that they've thought about and are ready to take action on? So evaluating all that, a lot of times they're just frustrated, and those are the words they know to express that frustration. If it is a safety risk, or there is a threat up against an individual, that is absolutely, you want to bring in a supervisor to evaluate next steps. There have been situations where we've had a duty to warn someone in another agency, and those sorts of things. So we just want to make sure that everybody has the information they need. But if it's just a vague threat, and someone blowing off steam, that, also give them the time and space to do so. Group 7.
For our scenario, we had a client who kept showing up to the office daily asking for the same staff member and got angry when they weren't available, and refused to leave the office. So we said, obviously, if they were aggressive verbally or physically, we would call the police or mobile mental health to assist with that. But also making sure that if something like this is happening with a client of yours that repeatedly shows up and gets angry when you're not available, to let your supervisor know so that we can address it. Or even if they're not comfortable working with that client anymore, so we can either switch them or refer them to a different agency. And also using the buddy system, it's also important to note that in every location you have to be let in by a staff member because the doors are locked. So letting your coworkers know too what's going on. So if the person does show up, we can handle it and they're not, causing a scene in the office.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, because sometimes, the individuals we work with have never had the kind of support that we're offering and can get very focused on an individual who's giving them that support and helping them meet their needs. And that's not necessarily healthy. So, if they're showing up every day, again, we don't necessarily need to let anybody into the office that's there. And if you're not expecting them, so they can wait in that vestibule area, either at our Middletown or our Little Britain area. There's a outside hallway where they can wait. Again, don't let people know who is there, whether that staff member is there or not. And as you pointed out, that might be a time to change the caseload, right? That's when you evaluate, like Katie said earlier, is it better for this person to work with a male staff member, a female staff member, and take that into consideration as well. So if you're feeling unsafe, again, bring that to your supervisor immediately so you can discuss some solutions, because sometimes even if you're enforcing all of your boundaries, the other side might not be respecting that and think there's more of a relationship there. And you don't want someone entirely dependent on you as well. Our goal is to get individuals to have autonomy and figure out how to navigate their goals themselves and give them those tools, not to depend on us to make things happen for those individuals. So great work. All right, last group number 8.
Hi. All right. So our scenario was a case manager is visiting a client at their home as they're speaking with the client in the living room. Loud yelling is heard from another room. A family member storms into the space visibly angry, demanding that the case manager leave. The client looks scared and does not intervene. So the first thing to consider is this a new behavior or is there a history of DV? Is there a safety plan that's already in place or is there anyone else in the home? Can you turn your volume down? Sorry. I hear my echo. It's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
What are the immediate steps to ensure safety? The care manager should remain calm, assess the safest options for themselves and the client. They would identify the exits, scan the environment, and keep an even tone, maybe ask what's wrong and see if they can help or de-escalate the situation. If it does become violent, it's important to note that you do not want to step in. You can't help a client if you're injured, and it could also potentially escalate the violence. If that is the case, you should immediately call the authorities and provide the necessary available information. In order to exit, if possible, the care manager should exit the home with the client if it can be done safely. If not, they should identify the exit and leave without turning their back to the aggressor. And then follow-up steps. I think if they were able to safely exit with the client, they should conduct a safety assessment for them in the home and create a safety plan if one is not already in place. And if the client was not safe to exit, they should immediately leave the environment and call 311, 911, supervisor, whatever the best situation would be. And then follow-ups, maybe meet outside the home, connect them with Fearless, connect them with other services. And again, the safety plan, make sure that one is in place.
Yeah, excellent. You guys covered it all. I don't even have anything to add there. But DV, what I do want to add is one little stat is DV is incredibly likely more to create violence. I mean, there's DV in the home, it is highly likely that something will escalate to that because of the personal feelings involved. Domestic violence is, as it is in the name, within the home. So the closer the relationship is, the more severe the violent act often is, the reaction, because emotions are involved. So again, removing yourself from the home, you can just be super chill and say, is that person burst in the room? I'm like, oh yeah, we were on our way out to go to the office anyway, and invite your client to come with you and act like that's what you were doing anyway. But your safety is the most important. Individuals in homes with domestic violence have figured out how to navigate that situation as safely as possible for themselves. So again, connecting with them with those resources, creating that safety plan with them. But if they decide to stay in the home, that's probably because they've decided that's the best way for them to navigate their safety at this point. So, just being available for them and thinking about your own safety and staying outside of that home meeting, in the public or at the office is also available. All right, so that concludes my training today. What I'd like you guys to take with it, other than the handout that is in the chat, is just the ability to stay aware, trust your gut, and know that you are a part of a team. And don't be afraid to tap a team member if you need that support. With that, I'll turn it back over to Angela.
Hi, Angela.
I'll turn it over to Angela. Yes, I got
Oh,
Sean.
sorry. I couldn't see everybody, so I'm turning it over to Sean.
She had another meeting that she had to jump on at 11, so with that, I think what we'll do first is kind of conclude. Again, as we said, we hope to see everyone tomorrow at the various locations for Staff Appreciation Day. Just, to echo, I think what some comments Angela said earlier, we truly do appreciate all the hard work that everyone does. It's every day, it's a different, challenge, it's a different success. And, it can't be done without really all of you working together to meet the participants where they're at and how we best, can do that as we move forward. So tomorrow, and if not, definitely looking in 3 weeks, and I wish you all a great rest of your Thursday. I was gonna say Friday, but it's not Friday yet. All the rest of a good Thursday, and be well.
Thank you.